A team like Alabama would probably take a step back this season, with all the recent changes and mix-up they have to deal with this football offseason, in a spur to make it back on top. At least that's what you would think. At the same time, Alabama continues to be in the SEC, the toughest conference in all of college football. Teams continuing to gun for Alabama's top spot, and of course losing out on some of the best players of all time due to them moving on to the NFL or transferring on the portal. A team that's about to lose a former Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, Bryce Young, is not supposed to be this good, but that's what's about to happen here in Bama. First off, we talk about the historic recruiting class here in Alabama. There's a history and running joke that the toughest, most athletic footballers want to play here in Bama, and that always seems to reign true with how insane the class looks like this year. There's already 7 5-stars committed to playing for Alabama, making sure a fresh crop of top-tier players is about to join this team again. That's also not mentioning all the insane 4-star recruits they also got, with 16 different 4-star recruits set to join. The insane recruiting class is nothing new for Bama, but it still speaks volumes to just how great of a campus it is, especially with its history of outstanding players, and with Coach Nick Saban continuing to work his magic and getting these guys to join and lock in for the Crimson Tide. Coach Nick Saban has actually been doing a ton of heavy lifting on this end for the offseason, because if you hadn't realized or didn't realize immediately, Alabama, for the most part of the offseason, didn't have an offensive and defensive coordinator. Not having coordinators during the college recruiting season was a big risk for Alabama. Young players would already be very hesitant to join a team with a new offensive or defensive coordinator. That hesitance would also be very much warranted, as a young player committing to a school for 2 to 4 years would probably want to know every single detail about the program they're joining. You'd want to know your future's secure, and you'd want to be led by people who know how to utilize and train you to set you up to be the best player you can be on the field. So despite not having a coordinator for both ends of the field, Alabama was able to snatch up some recruits. Very few, if any, other programs could have probably done what Alabama did and get not only some recruits, but to even get the best of the best 5-star football prospects, despite all those concerns. Can you imagine a team that was surrounded by questions and concerns where in the next few years it's suddenly rising as a team with the most 5-star recruits and the overall best recruiting class? While we don't want to give Coach Nick Saban all the credit, he still deserves a big brunt of said credit. Coach Nick Saban is the assurance a lot of these players wanted, that whoever ended up becoming their offensive or defensive coordinator, they were going to do wonders with Coach Saban at the helm. Eventually, the Crimson Tide did get their new coordinators, and they're both really good, solid signings. While Coach Nick will still do a lot of the heavy lifting, these guys will probably hold their own and set this team up for wins themselves. First off, we have the brand new offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees. Rees was previously the offensive coordinator of the Fighting Irish in Notre Dame, but he bolted for the chance to work with Saban here in Bama. There was a lot of talk from people regarding Rees burning bridges with Notre Dame after heading here for Alabama. But you can't fault this guy for wanting to work with the best coach in college football. Tommy Rees probably isn't the biggest name in college ball as an offensive coordinator, but this guy is stable and consistent as a coordinator. And that's just what this team needs from him. Alabama hasn't really been known for gaudy offensive numbers, and an offensive coordinator is probably going to have a tough time with a new crop of young players and fill in the hole Bryce Young is going to leave. But Rees can definitely bring some much-needed reliability to this team, and that's what's important. Now on the defensive end, Alabama hired Kevin Steele, who previously worked on the Miami Hurricanes, also as a defensive coordinator. If there's any person we can expect to continue Alabama's dominant defense, it's this guy. Kevin Steele is one accomplished man in the rank of coordinator and coach in college football. Steele has been a head coach before, albeit an interim one for Auburn all the way back in 2020. Still, this man has a career and has the experiences that a team would want. For fans who are unaware, this isn't Kevin Steele's first rodeo with Coach Nick Saban. Kevin Steele worked with Coach Saban before as a defensive coordinator for the Tide back in 2007 to 2015. Coach Kevin Steele is far from a stranger to Alabama's culture and understands how to get the most out of his team's defense with Coach Saban. Kevin Steele was also there for a bunch of those championship seasons back in the 2010s. So if there's any guy helping lead this team back to the top again, it's this guy. So, Alabama, a team that entered the offseason with so many questions and concerns, especially with no coordinators during recruiting season, emerges as a team with a top recruiting class, a solid new offensive coordinator, and a homecoming for a defensive coordinator that helped this team dominate before. This offseason is proof that there are a few constants in the sports world, but one of them will always be Coach Nick Saban, who will lead the Alabama Crimson Tide to a lot of wins and successes as always. Roll Tide!